Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something really specific and I think quite exciting. We're looking at a 2-year exchange student journey to Taiwan. And you, our listener, are the one heading out. You're feeling that mix, right? The buzz of opportunity, but also maybe a little bit of, well, caution. Understandable. To help navigate this, you consulted an oracle, the I Ching, and got a fascinating result. The hexagram, boo, changing into tickly. So this isn't just like a vague prediction. It's laid out as a specific 4-stage map for how these 2 years are likely to unfold. It shows the highs, but also the necessary, maybe challenging parts too.
Exactly. And what's really interesting here is how this reading gives us clear trajectory. It basically says you start with this really open, inviting energy.
Yeah.
But that necessarily has to evolve into something more structured, more self-regulating as time goes on.
So a journey from pure openness to discipline almost.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
It sets up this dynamic between that initial burst of social energy and what's needed for sustainable achievement over the long haul. We're really mapping out your growth step by step.
Okay, let's dive into that. First, the hexagrams themselves. The starting point and the destination, so to speak. The present moment where you're starting from is you, Dewey, which means joy, openness, communication. Sounds pretty good.
It is good. The source material is really positive about the beginning. It suggests you'll find it relatively easy to connect with people, settle in. There's this warmth, this easy social vibe around you initially.
And like hitting the ground running socially.
Pretty much. It's your initial advantage, your social capital to start building on.
But then the destination, the changing hexagram, is G, which represents restraint, moderation, boundaries. That sounds quite different.
It is different. It signals a necessary shift. The journey isn't just about the fun start. It moves towards a phase where actually it's discipline, careful choices, and setting limits that bring the real stability and the lasting rewards.
Okay. But hang on. If you start with all this joy and connection from Dewey, why does the oracle immediately point towards restraint, towards G? Couldn't that kill the buzz, stifle the openness you need at the start?
That's a really good question. And it's key. The shift isn't saying the joy is bad. Not at all. It's more acknowledgement that that kind of high energy, while great for launching, isn't sustainable if it's totally unchecked.
Ah, okay.
Dewey, if you just let it run wild, can lead to spreading yourself too thin. Overcommitment, maybe connections that stay superficial because you're flitting everywhere.
Right, you get caught up in the social whirlwind.
Exactly. So the oracle's saying that initial wave of connection is valuable, but it needs to be channeled, managed. Otherwise, that enthusiasm could actually undermine your main goals, whether academic or personal.
So the whole point is using Dewey's energy, but shaping it with G's structure.
You've got it. Harnessing the joy, using the structure. It's about turning that initial social ease into something more mature, more productive.
Yeah.
You use these start to gather resources, friends, support.
And then use the structure later to actually build something with them. Makes sense.
Right. So let's get into the specifics. The 4 stages laid out in the verses. This is where it gets really practical for your 2 years.
Okay, stage 1, the beginning. This is dominated by that Dewey energy, right? The verse is, speak with trust, the will can follow.
Yes. This stage is all about laying foundations, building trust, using that initial social capital effectively. Lisa, your genuine friendliness, your curiosity, being sincerely interested in learning the language, the culture, that's what draws people in. Classmates, your host family, teachers, they'll respond to that sincerity.
So practically speaking, what should you do?
Be proactive. Introduce yourself in class, even if your language skills feel shaky. Ask roommates about local food. Customs show you respect their knowledge. Join orientation events, language exchanges. Lean into that Dewey ease.
Don't wait to be asked.
Definitely not. And the absolute key tip here, tied to trust, is reliability, even in small things.
Like
showing up on time if you agree to meet someone, meeting deadlines you commit to. In a new place where people don't know you, these small acts of reliability build trust incredibly fast. It turns that easy sociability into a real support network.
Okay, solid start. Then what happens? Stage 2, development. The verses arhotarshu, moderation, measured taste to sweet. This is where G starts to come in.
Precisely. This usually kicks in after a few months. The initial honeymoon phase fades, routine starts to settle, and the oracle gives a clear heads up. Routine is only enjoyable if it's sustainable. This is where you actively need to start setting those boundaries. Study time, money, social life.
To avoid burnout, basically.
Exactly. That initial dewy excitement, if unchecked, will drain your resources, physical, emotional, maybe even financial.
Yeah, I can see that. Balancing late nights out, exploring, which Dewey totally encourages, with needing to be sharp for language classes the next day. That's tough.
It is. So maybe you budget for those cool weekend trips exploring Taiwan, but keep day-to-day spending sensible.
And study habits.
Steady wins the race. Instead of cramming for hours before a test, consistent, maybe shorter daily study sessions, that's the G approach. Better results, less stress.
So the strategy for stage 2 is setting up guardrails.
Perfect way to put it. Preemptive structures. A simple weekly budget you stick to. Maybe specific study times you protect from social invites. Perhaps even like a cutoff time for phone calls or messages.
Little fences to keep things manageable.
Exactly. You're applying the G antidote structure before the GB excess leads to exhaustion. You're managing the energy proactively.
Okay, this sounds manageable, but then stage 3, the midpoint change. The verse sounds intense. Spirit unclear, the mirror is shattered. That sounds dramatic.
It is dramatic language, and it signals a really significant moment, a jolt. You need to expect a period of real disorientation here.
What kind of disorientation?
Could be peak culture shock, intense homesickness, maybe a serious academic challenge that makes you doubt yourself.
Yeah.
The shattered mirror means the image you had of yourself, the experience, maybe of Taiwan itself, suddenly cracks. Reality bites, basically.
Oof. Is this like a punishment for not setting up those stage 2 structures properly? Or is it just inevitable?
It can be a bit of both, honestly. If you didn't manage your energy or finances well in stage 2, this crisis might hit harder. Maybe you run out of money or your grades slip badly.
Right.
But even if you did everything right, deep immersion often triggers a kind of identity wobble. You're navigating between cultures, feeling like you don't fully belong in either. That spirit unclear part points to real confusion about your purpose, maybe even questioning why you're there at all.
That sounds tough. So the key is what? How do you handle the shattered mirror moment?
The key is understanding as part of the process. The oracle presents it as a necessary phase, actually. It reveals the gaps, the mismatches between expectation and reality.
So don't freak out.
Easier said than done, but yes, don't panic. And crucially, avoid making big life-altering decisions when you're feeling overwhelmed and confused.
Like deciding to just pack up and go home.
Exactly. This is a time for reflection, not impulsive action. Seek support immediately. Talk to your program advisor, a mentor, maybe a counselor. Journaling can be huge here, just to untangle what you're feeling.
Yeah.
Find the root of the crisis before you try to fix it.
Okay, so that difficulty, that clarity, painful as it might be, leads into the final stage. Stage 4. Transition to the next phase. The verse is, careful planning yield results, reputation, and stability. Sounds like recovery.
It's more than recovery. It's about building on the crisis. This verse promises that thoughtful, deliberate action, informed by the lessons from stage 3, leads to real, tangible gains. This is G, that restraint energy reaching its most productive point. You move from just coping to actually mastering the situation.
So you take the insights from the shattered mirror and turn them into a plan.
Precisely. Maybe you realize your old study habits just weren't working in this new context, so you develop new ones. Or perhaps the crisis clarified what you're truly passionate about, so you focus on a final project that really showcases your growth and cultural understanding.
And the results are specific. Reputation and stability. What does that mean, practically?
It means moving beyond just being liked. It's about building a solid academic record, getting strong recommendations from professors who've seen you navigate challenges, maybe achieving a recognized level of language proficiency. You're building something concrete for your future.
You're not just a tourist anymore.
Exactly. You've integrated, adapted, and contributed something.
So the key tip for this final stage must be about being deliberate.
Absolutely. Make a realistic plan for, say, your last 3-6 months. Set specific measurable goals. What language certificate do you want? Which professors do you need references from? What project will showcase your skills? Small, consistent steps, guided by that hard-won clarity, lead to visible achievements.
Wow. Okay, so looking back at the whole arc, it's a really powerful journey. From that initial dewy openness to the structured achievement of G, let's maybe synthesize this a bit. Talk about the underlying dynamics.
Yeah, the yin-yang interplay is central. That initial dewy energy, open, bright, very yang, is essential for getting started, gathering resources, making connections.
But too much yang burns itself out.
Right. Unchecked openness can lead to scattering your energy. The shift towards G, which is more about contracting, structuring, a yin-balancing force, is what makes the growth sustainable. It channels the energy. Understanding this natural ebb and flow helps you manage the emotional ride.
So for your day-to-day life over there, how do you actually manage that swing from excitement, maybe into confusion during stage 3, and then into that focused adaptation phase without feeling totally exhausted by it all?
You need grounding techniques. And importantly, they should be linked specifically to countering the potential excesses of Dewey with the principles of G.
Okay, give me an example.
So Dewey encourages constant connection, maybe being on socially all the time. A grounding technique, applying G, could be creating a specific boundary. Like maybe the first hour of Sunday morning is strictly digital G time. No phone, no messages, just quiet reflection or planning for the week ahead.
Ah, so it's not just general stress relief, it's a targeted countermeasure.
Exactly. Deliberate moments of restraint, of G, to stabilize yourself when the external environment feels overwhelming or pulls you in too many directions.
That makes sense. So the overall strategy is
Use those initial Dewey relationships as your safety net. Build them quickly, but simultaneously start layering in those G structures, the budget, the study routine, the boundaries, right from the early stages.
don't wait for stage 2 to officially start.
Ideally, no. Start early. It prevents small issues from piling up and turning into a massive crisis when that inevitable shattered mirror moment hits around the midpoint. It sets you up for that stable, rewarding growth in the end.
It sounds like the Oracle is promising a journey that's both, delightful at times, but also genuinely transformative. Starting bright, yes, but maturing into something really solid and disciplined.
That's the heart of it. Those 2 years are set up to be incredibly meaningful precisely because of this structure. It's not just random ups and downs.
So the final advice is,
Embrace the Dewey start. Be open, friendly, join things, enjoy that social connection. But keep a little bit of G, that discipline, those boundaries, that reflexive habit in your back pocket from day one. That's what ensures these 2 years aren't just a fun memory, but a truly productive and personally enriching foundation for whatever comes next.
okay, a final thought for you, the listener, building on this. If the biggest rewards, according to this reading, come from that careful planning, the G phase, after the shattered mirror crisis, what specific boundaries could you set up before you even get on the plane? Think beyond just study schedules. Are there financial limits, maybe rules for yourself about social media or digital distractions that you could establish now? Something to ensure that initial Dewey excitement doesn't lead you straight into exhaustion later on. Definitely something worth considering as you finish packing those bags.